What's going on, guys? Graham G.S. Matthews here with my audio review for Friday Night SmackDown for October 1st, 2021. Hope you guys are doing well and having an awesome weekend. This was night one of the 2021 WWE Draft, the results of which we're going to get into right away here in the review, and then get into the matches and the implications of the moves and stuff. So right off the bat, let's talk about the results of the 2021 WWE Draft. And of course, as I record right now, more picks and moves are being made on the Talking Smack show, the supplemental picks, so to speak, on their Peacock show or whatever. So I'll discuss those on Talking Smack. I'm going to do an entirely separate post over on WrestleRant.com with my thoughts on the supplemental picks and really every pick in the 2021 WWE Draft. Night 1 and Night 2, respectively. Night 1, I'll have a post up probably tomorrow at some point. As soon as I'm done recording here and putting this video up, I'm actually leaving to go to a independent wrestling show, Northeast Wrestling, here in Connecticut. MJF was supposed to be on the card, but it's going to feature Will Ospreay, Enzo, who gives a shit, I know, but Matt Hardy, Private Party, Deonna Purrazzo, the Impact Knockouts champion. Man, there's a whole bunch of people there. Fandango, Eddie Kingston, Rocky Romero, among other people. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's a very newsworthy, eventful weekend for me because I'm going to that tonight. The draft was last night. I was at another show on Thursday at a local bar, which was completely random, but it was great. Draft on Monday, and I'm going to a fair on Sunday. So we got to squeeze this in here. But yeah, let's get right into it. The results of the 2021 WWE Draft for Night 1. Going to Raw in the first round was the WWE Champion Big E, as well as Bianca Belair, and these are not in order, by the way. For SmackDown, who did get the premier pick overall in the WWE Draft this year, at least for SmackDown, so which makes me think, and I'll talk about this in a second, that if SmackDown got the first pick on SmackDown, which they never do, the way that they formatted the draft the last 2 or 3 years, dating back to 2019 when they brought back the draft, because before that they did that stupid superstar shakeup, which never made any sense. They never clearly defined the rules of the superstar shakeup. The draft is a far better concept. So the way that it's worked the last couple of years is that they would do 5 picks per round. Raw, SmackDown, Raw, SmackDown, Raw. Which never made any sense to me. I know Raw gets more picks because it's a bigger show. And maybe they'll go back to that on Raw this week. But Raw would always get the first pick. And they would always get back-to-back picks every fucking time. It wasn't like an actual draft like you see with sports drafts and fantasy drafts where it'll be like that snake format where like Raw, SmackDown, SmackDown, Raw, Raw, SmackDown, like that type of thing. You didn't get that here. This was just back and forth, back and forth. It was back and forth, and I thought this was well done. Usually it's like Raw, SmackDown, Raw, SmackDown, Raw, and I'm thinking SmackDown's getting fucked here from a storyline standpoint. You didn't get that on this show. I actually hope they continue this format over on Raw. You can't get as many picks in during each days of the draft, but hey, you know what? Then again, they released half of the fucking roster, so it may not even matter anyway. Like the people that you would be picking on TV or in the supplemental draft may not even be on the show anyway because they already released a whole bunch of talent in the last year. I know they're calling up new people, which we'll get into, but I actually like this format better. The only change I would make on Monday, aside from announcing who's remaining in the WWE Draft, that was an issue this year. Unlike the last 2 years, they did not announce who was eligible in either pool of the draft. So we were just watching, going in blind here, with people thinking, oh, why didn't they pick Bobby Lashley? Why didn't they pick so-and-so? Where's Becky Lynch? Blah, blah, blah. Because they never actually clearly defined the rules until A, hours before the show on WWE.com, and B, there were no pools announced for either night. Maybe they'll rectify that on Monday. It's really whoever's left, obviously, is eligible, but there were also supplemental picks made on Talking Smack, which I'll get into tomorrow here on the channel. But anyway, going to SmackDown was the Universal Champion Roman Reigns and the Raw Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. Now, it's been well known in the last couple of years. We've seen champion switch shows. 2 years ago, the Universal Champion went to SmackDown, the Universal Champion was Rollins at the time, and he went to Raw. Bray Wyatt ended up winning the Universal Championship and bringing that to SmackDown. Brock Lesnar was the WWE Champion. The WWE title stayed on SmackDown, but they ended up switching it to Raw. The US and IC titles have changed hands or changed shows a bunch of times. They've swapped shows quite a few times over the last 10 years, 10, 15 years. And in last year's draft, we saw the tag title swap shows. The SmackDown Tag Team Champions went to Raw, that being the New Day, And the Raw Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits, went to SmackDown. So that was fucking lazy the way they swapped the titles. Will they do that here with the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships? We don't know. And honestly, as it stands right now, because we don't know what the remainder of the draft is going to look like, and we were also told that the draft will not go into effect with who, ends up on what show and being assigned to each brand, will not go into effect until after Crown Jewel on October 21st. So they don't go into effect until the October 22nd SmackDown the next day. So Charlotte and Becky could very well end up on the same show. With Bianca going to Raw, I would sure as hell hope not that Bianca is not going to Raw and Becky staying on SmackDown, because that would completely fuck over Bianca from losing to Becky in 26 seconds and never getting her win back. Not exactly uncommon for this company, unfortunately, but that would be disappointing, so I hope they don't do that. I don't know if that means that Charlotte would drop the Raw Women's Championship, which she very well could, to a Shayna Baszler if she stays on Raw, or if they just have Becky, if Bianca's on Raw and Becky goes to Raw, Sasha Banks is in that triple threat of Crown Jewel. She can win the SmackDown Women's title. Would they, if not, just swap the championships again? To me, again, that's fucking lazy. Just rectify the issue altogether by not calling them, which I know they've done for 5 years now, but completely eradicate it and give them new names. Get rid of the whole brand-assigned, brand-centric names for titles and call them whatever it was 15 years ago. The United States and Intercontinental titles have swapped shows, and it hasn't been a problem because they're not assigned to one brand or the other. Like, they're not like, the Raw Intercontinental Championship. That's fucking stupid. Same thing with the Universal and WWE. The color of the championship might change for the Raw or, for the Universal Championship, which is also stupid. But for the SmackDown and Raw, tag team titles and women's titles, have the Women's Championship and then have, the fucking Universal Women's title. I have no idea. For the tag titles, that can easily be rectified. Back in the day, we had the World Tag Team Championships and the WWE Tag Team Championships. 2 different designs, 2 different set of titles. They're just lazy with that now, so I don't think that's going to happen, but just a quick note there. Big E on Raw, Roman on SmackDown, exactly where they should be. Big E's been on SmackDown for the last 4 years, and they actually swapped the New Day in the draft. So let's get into round 2 here. And Bianca going to Raw, I'm not exactly sold on, but we'll see what happens in the remainder of the draft. I thought she was perfect on SmackDown. She just showed up on SmackDown a year ago. She never got any semblance of a push on Raw before she went to SmackDown. So I am a little skeptical about that move. And that was really the only one that actually bothered me from this night 1 of the WWE Draft. A lot of these moves made sense and I had no problem with. So in round 2, the Raw Tag Team Champions, RK Bro, Randy Orton, and Riddle were selected by Raw, along with Edge. So 3 great picks there for Monday nights. SmackDown selected Drew McIntyre and the remainder of the New Day. Same issue, same question I posed last year. How the fuck can you select the New Day 2 members, and why wouldn't you just get the entire trio? If we got Hit Row, spoiler alert, in round 4, or round 3 rather, as an entire unit, that's 4 people in one group, and the New Day have been together as a trio in the last couple of weeks on Raw. Why wouldn't you select them as a trio in the draft? We ran into the same exact issue a year ago. It makes no fucking sense. It makes absolutely no sense. But honestly, I'm going to say this. I like this move. I saw people complaining about it on Twitter. Oh, how could you break them up as soon as you put them back together? Because they should have never been put back together in the first place. It is way too soon to be putting the entire New Day back together on a regular basis. Hate to break it to you, but that's the way that it should be. Big E has got to be his own man on Raw. He had thrived on his own on SmackDown. I didn't love the idea of him going to Raw, but if he's going to be his own world champion on his own show, aside from, apart from Roman Reigns, I liked that. You can't have the New Day doing the New Day 6-man tags every week. There's no reason to have them back together at this point. Maybe next year. Now I think it's too soon, especially while Big E's WWE champion. I think one of the biggest problems with that Kofi Kingston WWE title reign, as great as it was, as well booked as he was that he never really... Not that he needs to break away from the New Day or completely get rid of that stench, which makes it sound bad. But, he can't be 1/3 of New Day. He's got to be the WWE champion. Big E right now does not feel like the WWE champion. He was in a random 6-man tag team match at the pay-per-view on Sunday. That's the fucking WWE champion kicking off the pay-per-view. That's not the way that it should be. He's got to be his own man. So Kofi and Woods going to SmackDown aside from Big E, people are going to be mad at it. Fucking suck it up, because that's exactly what should have happened. McIntyre going to SmackDown, great pick. I think we've all predicted this. We all said this. McIntyre has been on Raw for the last 3.5 years since coming back to the main roster. He was WWE Champion twice. He was Raw Tag Team Champion. He's already been Intercontinental Champion. That's on SmackDown right now anyway. He already went for the United States Championship recently. No reason for him to stay on Raw. He might challenge Big E for the WWE title at Crown Jewel. Should obviously lose. I like Drew on SmackDown. Fresh batch of opponents to work with. Fresh scenery. We heard from him later on in the show. He put the Universal Champion on notice. And not only that, but, he referenced how he started on SmackDown back in 2009. And he wasn't ready at that point, and it kind of failed, and he was drafted to Raw in 2011, I think. Didn't exactly pan out well for him there. But yeah, McIntyre on SmackDown's a great pick. I'm actually very happy with that pick. So, another good round here. Round 3 saw the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash remain on Raw, along with Keith Lee, so they're staying on Raw. SmackDown got Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss, is what they're calling Riddick Moss now. I can't even pretend to be mad at that because I don't give a fuck about Riddick Moss. Call him whatever you want. He's just there. It doesn't even matter. It's a stupid name, but whatever. So Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss, are going back to the blue brand. And Hit Row was selected as the one of the picks here for the blue brand, which I fucking love. Now, I am scared. Raw, SmackDown is a superior show most weeks as far as the creative direction goes overall. But it's still the main roster. I mean, we've seen Toni Storm, Tegan Nox, and Shotzi Blackheart all go to SmackDown and done absolutely nothing. So going to SmackDown does not automatically mean that you're safe from the woes of WWE Creative. Most people do well on SmackDown, not everyone. Hit Row, I'm really crossing my fingers because NXT came across this great group in only the last couple of months. These guys and girl, that being BFAB, only formed back in May. They've only been together about 4 or 5 months. They've been feuding essentially with Legado del Fantasma the entire time and have yet to have a singles match between Legado and Hit Row or Isaiah and Santos. Personally, as I've said before, I would have kept Hit Row and NXT a little longer. I think Legado has been due for a main roster call-up for a while now. I feel like this would have been the pick for Undisputed Era had they not been, broken up and fired from the company. I mean, Bobby Fish was fired. Kyle O'Reilly's still on NXT. Roddy Strong is the new NXT Cruiserweight Champion. Diamond Mine I could see getting called up at some point. Adam Cole left the company. But, of any group in NXT right now, aside from Legado, Hit Row was the right faction to be called up. There were rumors they were Raw-bound. So the fact they're going to SmackDown makes me slightly more optimistic. Will they be utilized? Will they be fine? We don't know. But again, I really, really hope they will because they're a great group. Isaiah Swerve Scott is a fucking star. He did absolutely nothing as the NXT North American champion. We got to call a spade here. He won the belt back in late June. The guy he beat the belt for isn't even employed by them anymore. And we have not seen a single title defense by Isaiah Swerve Scott. So unless he's hurt and we just don't know it, that to me makes no... I don't think we've even seen the guy wrestle recently, which is just bizarre to me. But at any rate, he'll probably relinquish the championship or lose it next week in NXT. Who knows? He's not going to bring it to SmackDown with him, although it is on SmackDown as we speak right now. And in the fourth and final round of the WWE Draft, before the remainder of the pools, they had to remind us at the beginning of every fucking round, this is half of the roster, remainder of the pool, and eligible superstars will be drafted on Monday. They didn't specify who was eligible on the show, but I guess whoever they didn't pick can always be drafted on Monday. So the fourth round saw Dominic and Rey Mysterio selected by Raw. So Rey and Dominic back on Monday nights. Rey is much more of a SmackDown guy to me. He's been on Raw a bunch of times over the course of his career. He's never really felt like a Raw superstar to me personally. He's never had a whole lot of success over there, so we'll see where it goes. I guess this means we might get the Rey and Dominic storyline transpiring over there if they remain a team. Who knows? They could probably stick around a little bit longer. I mean, who were the Raw Tag Team Champions? RK Bro? Maybe they could feud with RK Bro for a little while, and then they split up. Who knows? But they also got Austin Theory on Raw. Now, this one was pretty self-explanatory, or not self-explanatory, but inevitable. In that Austin Theory, I mean, he hasn't been on NXT regularly in months. He was conspicuous by his absence. He was involved in the wedding, which I was happy with because they got to pay off that angle. But beyond that, though, it was very clear that he was getting called up. It was more a matter of where he would show up than if on Raw or SmackDown. And We got our answer here. He's going to Raw. He's going to Monday nights. Again, I fear for this guy because this is the same guy that went to Raw a year and a half ago, abruptly, completely out of nowhere, called up way too soon, and did not do well. He wasn't completely buried. I mean, he got to compete at WrestleMania for whatever the fuck that's worth because it was at the Performance Center, but one of his first matches on the main roster was at WrestleMania. He was paired up soon after with, was it Rollins or... No. What did they do with... Didn't they, have him switch... Wasn't he involved in, another stable or something? He was with... Wasn't he being scouted by, Zelina Vega? I honestly don't remember. But I'm pretty sure he was being paired off with Andrade and Angel Garza, and they kicked him out of the group. And then Rollins recruited him, and then he got paired off with him. And then I don't know if it was, the speaking out stuff, which I think he was involved in, or an injury, or whatever the fuck, but he was taken off TV pretty quickly. And then returned to NXT months later. And I love the way stuff. I thought he was great in the way. He was more of a comedy character, but Austin Theory can be a star. I think he's really good. My fear is that he's going to end up on main event. I mean, Angel Garza's great too, but up until he paired off with Humberto Carrillo, his cousin, recently, he also was a mainstay on main event for a very long time, despite having a hot start on Raw about a year ago. So, not that he would be, completely without any issue on SmackDown, but I think on Raw, I honestly see him getting lost in the shuffle. I'm not going to lie. I really honestly see him ending up on main event. I really hope I'm wrong. Maybe he can be the one to beat Damian Priest for that United States Championship. I think that'd be a great role for him. We'll see. That one, not that I'm not sold on it, but I don't think it's a terrible pick. I'm just kind of a little bit skeptical that he'll have success on Raw. As for SmackDown, they got Naomi and Jeff Hardy. Naomi, as she said in a backstage segment after the show, she's a SmackDown superstar to me. She's been on Raw a few times. It has never panned out. She's never gotten any semblance of a push on Raw. SmackDown has always been where she was SmackDown Women's Champion, where she won the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal a few years ago. She's got this storyline with Sonya Deville right now, which you could always do on Raw because Sonya's not exclusive to one brand or the other. But I would rather see Sonya come back to the ring on SmackDown as opposed to Raw, so I like that pick. And then finally for SmackDown, Jeff fucking Hardy. Probably the happiest I was after any pick in this night one of the WWE Draft. I mean, that sounds weird. I know Hardy's in the twilight of his career. He doesn't have a lot of years left. He's a guy, though, that should be doing more than what he's doing right now, which is absolutely nothing. I know he was involved in the United States Championship match at the pay-per-view on Sunday. That was a total last-minute thing. Prior to that, though, he did absolutely fucking nothing on Raw for many, many months. He was Did he even have a feud? He was off Raw for months. He came back. He was chasing the 24/7 title, which was a complete waste of time. Yeah, I don't know. They just did nothing with him on Raw. He had some momentum before he went to SmackDown, or when he was drafted. When he was on SmackDown last year, before he was drafted to Raw, he had some momentum. He had the feuds with Sheamus, and he was Intercontinental Champion, and he was having some great matches with Sammy and AJ Styles. And then he went to Raw, and it was all downhill from there. The Elias feud was a complete waste of time. So I'm happy he's back on SmackDown, and hopefully if he can be rebuilt and built back up and whatnot, he could be a viable challenger for Roman Reigns. Do I see him beating Roman? No. But I think the matches could be fun. The people would buy into Jeff. He's still very much over. Despite how much he loses, Jeff Hardy is still one of the most popular people in the entire company. Like him or hate him, he is one of the most popular over people on this entire roster, Raw or SmackDown. So him going to SmackDown, I think, is a great pick. Overall, I was happy with the results of the Night 1 WWE Draft. No picks that were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is stupid. Some questionable ones, again, I fear for Belair and Austin Theory on Raw. SmackDown got some very good picks there. Corbin kind of remains right where he should be. Some necessary moves made there. I thought this was a really good draft, and everyone's saying, oh, no, not many people switch shows. They don't have to switch shows. You're not going to switch every fucking person on the roster. No shit. They made enough moves for this to be eventful, for this to be notable. So I like this. We'll see what Night 2 has in store so far. I like a lot of the picks made. The structure improved. My only issue with the draft this year was that the pools were not announced in advance. So it made things very confusing with people wondering, well, where is X, Y, and Z? And as far as like the order of the picks too, that didn't really bother me either. I mean, Corbin being selected ahead of fucking Jeff Hardy is ridiculous. even if it includes Madcap Moss. But beyond that, a lot of these picks in the order of which made sense. I mean, Naomi feels like a 4th-round draft pick. I mean, it wasn't like she was drafted on Talking Smack, so Hit Row being in round 3 was cool. You got the New Day in there. For the Raw picks, Austin Theory and the Mysterios being in round 4 made sense behind Lee and Rhea and Nikki. Edge being in round 2, Bianca in round 1. So I thought this was a good draft. We'll see what Raw has in store. I liked what I saw on this show. The structure was better. It would make a lot more sense if you had general managers, but whatever. As for the actual results from SmackDown, we won't spend a lot of time on this because there really wasn't a lot to discuss here. But Brock Lesnar confronted Roman Reigns, also attacked the Usos. Great segment here. Kind of mirroring the segment they did in Madison Square Garden 3 weeks ago. Pretty much essentially the same segment, but it was well done. The crowd was hot for it. I was not expecting Brock on this show. I don't think he was ever advertised in advance, unless I'm wrong. So, yeah, I thought that was great. We got to hear from Brock later on, interrupting Jeff Hardy, also putting Roman Reigns on notice and stating that he's a free agent, which I'm sure makes USA very happy. I was thinking he might get drafted to Raw, but I actually like the idea of Brock kind of floating between both brands, which also means he can go to whatever show Bobby Lashley is on. So if he loses to Roman, and he should at Crown Jewel, his next target should be Bobby Lashley. And Bobby Lashley is not the WWE champion anymore. I don't think he's going to regain that belt anytime soon, if ever. But that is the match that I would do, most likely at WrestleMania. Will they do it? Probably not, but that's my 2 cents. So great segment to kick off the show. Happy Corbin beat Kevin Owens. Kind of just their match. Mediocre match was what it was. I tweeted this, but Kevin Owens losing gives me major Dean Ambrose on his way out energy from 2019. I'm on my way out and putting everyone else over in the process. Not that that's his decision, but I mean, hey, they need to build up Happy Corbin for whatever the fuck that's worth. He's got the Madcap Moss connection now, again, for whatever the hell that's worth. The match was fine. The only thing really worth noting about the match itself was that they are now calling, which I honestly popped for, they are now calling the end of days Happy Days for Happy Corbin, which I think is hilarious. So I like that. The match itself was whatever, with an expected outcome. Hey, at least Kevin Owens didn't lose to Madcap Moss, but it's still early. Maybe we get that next week. Who knows? At any rate, we had Rollins interrupting Edge, who was out in the ring talking about being drafted to Raw and how SmackDown was his home, but he's excited for his future on Monday nights for whatever, however long he's going to be on Raw is the question. Because he's on Raw, but it's like, how active will he actually be? So Rollins interrupts Edge and says, hey, I thought, I figured you were a liar and you wouldn't actually show up, so I went to your home instead. And Edge, watching on the big screen, runs to the backstage area to make a phone call, calls his wife instead of calling the fucking police. Rollins was in his house for a little while. He walked around the living room. He drank some orange juice at the dinner table. He was there for a while, and it was entertaining. It went on a little longer than it probably should have because there was no real endgame here. We didn't see like the police show up or Beth show up or even FTR, which I guess Edge, when he called Beth, and I doubt he ran this by Vince or creative. I'm pretty sure he just threw this in himself. He's like, oh, get Daniel and David over there immediately. Daniel and David are the real names of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler from AEW of FTR. Because they live in the area, they're close with Edge, so I thought that was funny. We almost got an FTR appearance on SmackDown. Attacking Rollins, how great would that have been? But no, it was not meant to be. We were also supposed to get Liv Morgan versus Carmella one-on-one again in a rematch from Extreme Rules and a rematch from SmackDown, the 500 times they've already done the match. The match never even fucking happened. This was a complete waste of time. First of all, they should have blown off the feud at the pay-per-view. Obviously. That goes without saying. Liv Morgan won, that should have been it. They were supposed to have another match here, and the fact that it didn't happen means that we're probably going to get it again one of these days. Either next week or on Raw or whatever. Oh my god, this was so dumb. So like Carmella went after Liv, grabbed like a fake mask, attacked her while wearing that, took it off, looking like fucking Dashing Cody Rhodes circa 2011. This was just stupid. Complete waste of time. And the fact they didn't even do the match means that we're probably getting it again one of these weeks, and I just don't care. Liv has already beaten her, like, literally every time. Almost every time they have faced off, Liv has beaten her, as she should have. It is time to move on from this feud. Please draft Carmella to Raw and keep Liv Morgan on SmackDown. That is what I have to say about that. The New Day and the Street Profits teamed up to take on Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, Otis, and Chad Gable. Fun 8-man tag team match here. Everyone getting a chance to shine. They got some good time. Essentially a tag team showcase for SmackDown. Do not get used to seeing the New Day and the Profits on the same show. I am almost positive the Profits are going to Raw. If Bianca's on Raw, I don't think they're splitting up Montez and Bianca. Unless they're splitting up the Profits, which would be... I would not advise that right now. I would certainly not do that. Maybe at some point down the road, I feel like it's inevitable. Right now, though, I would say no. So, Profits are almost definitely going to Raw, and probably Roode and Ziggler too, for whatever the fuck that's worth. I think Otis and Gable should stay on SmackDown. Roode and Ziggler are just, who gives a shit at this point? They haven't won a match in probably 6 months. I just don't care about their team anymore. Not that I ever really cared to begin with, but Roode should be doing his own thing. Ziggler is just a complete waste of a roster spot at this point. They help elevate people, but they mean absolutely nothing. So I would split them up, but they're probably going to Raw as a team in this upcoming draft. And then in the main event, Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair in a rematch from WrestleMania, in the match we were supposed to get at SummerSlam. And they only announced this for the show mere hours ahead of time, which was fucking stupid. I mean, this was the match you were supposed to do at SummerSlam, Grand WrestleMania, not even a WrestleMania rematch, a WrestleMania main event rematch. And it was thrown together within hours of the show happening. Typical WWE, but I was disappointed by that. The match was good, not nearly as great as the WrestleMania match. They should have given it more time, more build, but it was enjoyable. They work well together, obviously. Becky Lynch said it on commentary. She was annoying. It didn't really bother me personally. I saw a lot of other people fucking hating on it, which, I mean, that's the point. Like with Jericho, I don't know if that's the point when he's acting all annoying because he's not supposed to be a heel. I didn't really mind Becky's commentary personally, but the match was what it was. Becky helping Bianca lose here, helping Sasha win inadvertently. They are going to have a triple threat for this SmackDown Women's Championship at Crown Jewel. So the way that I see it happening, I think Becky wins that. They pin Sasha. And Becky and Bianca continue to feud on Raw over the Raw Women's Championship after they swap the championships again, which is dumb, but that's what I expect to happen. So I didn't have an issue with Sasha winning here because she lost to WrestleMania. She needed the win. That didn't really bother me. The way she won didn't bother me. They protected Bianca in defeat. The show did not end with them, though. The show ended with Charlotte and Becky Lynch squaring off, facing off, doing a stare down, and holding up their respective championships, which tells me that we're probably getting those two, not in their current roles as Raw and SmackDown champions, but probably with the titles reversed once they swap them, at Survivor Series. And I feel like it's too soon to be going back to that match. I know it was only a year or two ago, but I still feel like it's too soon. I just have no desire to see Charlotte and Becky again after the million matches they've already had. But you know they work well together, so whatever. So that's what they closed the show with. I thought it was a good show. The draft stuff was obviously the most important part of the show. I thought the picks made sense. The structure of the show made sense. No issues there. The matches were enjoyable. I liked the 8-man tag. The main event was good for what it was. Not what it could have been, but it was good. I like the Rollins Edge angle advancement there. Morgan and Carmella, complete waste of time. Corbin and Owens was what it was, and I like the opening segment. So overall, solid show. Enjoyed the draft portion of it, and we'll see where the remainder of the picks wind up in night 2 of the WWE Draft this coming Monday on Raw, the results of which, not just that, but the entire 2021 WWE Draft, we'll be breaking down on Wrestle Rant Radio, RJ and I and myself, next Thursday on the show, so stay tuned for that. Have an awesome rest of your weekend, guys. Thank you for checking out my SmackDown audio review. Be sure to drop a like, comment, share the video, subscribe to the channel for more daily content, including hitting that bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. And stay tuned for my Talking Smack audio review right here on the channel tomorrow. Have an awesome one, guys. Once again, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.